back. If you're having trouble getting your watercolor floral bouquets to be big, lush, and beautiful, I have 2 tricks that have really helped me. Maybe they'll help you too. If you're new here, my name is Teresa. I'm a surface pattern designer and watercolor artist. Now, the first tip is to overlap your elements. Now, I don't just mean by painting one thing on top of another. There are 2 more ways you can use an overlapping idea that will really add a lot of depth to your bouquets. So we are going to paint a bouquet together so that I can step you through all the different ways you can accomplish overlapping, plus the other tip that I will tell you about in a moment. Okay, the first thing about overlapping is that there has to be a hierarchy in your composition. So think about which things do you want to be up front and which things do you want to recede into the background. So I always like to start with the hero flower. So I'm going to paint a peony. And just as an extra little tip here for a peony, it's really easy to paint when you do it looking up or off to the side, to start with the front 2 petals. So I have my front 2 petals here. They're the largest, the most prominent, and then just start adding some little side petals. So this is our hero flower. It needs to be larger than the other flowers that we are going to have in our composition. I'm painting now the leaves that fall away from the flower. And I kind of got this a little pointed, but that's okay. We're not going to worry about that right now. We can fix that later. I just want to move on with getting the shape of this flower. So peonies are a nice bowl shape. So I'll just add a few of the petal tips here in the back side of our bowl, like this. I'm going to add some permanent rose in here to add a little depth right where all these petals attach to this flower. And I just want to make these bottom petals a little bit larger. So we are going to tuck another flower up under here in just a moment. So I want these petals to remain wet for just a bit. So I'm going to add a little clean water here, fix my pointed edges, and then that's good enough. We can leave it there for now. Let's see, let's go ahead and add, uh-oh. Let's add the stamen in here because I do want that to bleed in just a little bit. So I'll do that very quickly. And I'm using an extended needle point brush to do this. So I'm just using a little yellow and my extended point brush. All right, that's good enough. And actually we have a little hole right there. Let me fix that hole real quick. There we go. All right, now notice I've left plenty of white space. It's a big, beautiful flower, but there's still white space. So the balance is to get enough white space in your composition, but still have a full bouquet. So that's something that we'll just continue to work with throughout this whole painting, of just reassessing how much white space. But now that we have our main flower, let's go and add another flower. So this is part of the layering idea, is that we want this other flower to look like it's coming out of the bouquet. So I'm going to place it in this top right-hand quadrant. And I'm using my filbert brush, and I'm just going to do a generic yellow flower. So on this one, I want to be able to see a little bit of the greenery around this flower. So I'm leaving just a little bit of space between these 2 flowers for that greenery. So that's the basic flower there. Let's add the center before I do the front two petals, because I want this to bleed into those petals just a little bit. All right, oop, that was, okay, there we go. That's good. And now part of the layering is that you want to layer in size. So this is going to be our smaller flower, and then we'll do a medium-sized flower. So not all your flowers are going to be the same size. All right, and we want movement, so this flower is looking in a different direction than our main flower. So we're layering movement as well. So that is our second trick, is to layer the movement in your bouquet. So not everything is looking straight at us. And we're going to talk more about that in a moment. So let's add some leaves in here, and I want them to touch both of these flowers. So this is another way of overlapping, is that we have our colors bleeding into each other. That's going to take up space. It'll take up our white space. When they're touching and bleeding into each other, it really helps bring home the fact that these elements are close together. So I'm just going to add a little bit darker tone in here so that there are multiple shades of yellow in this flower. So shading also helps. It's not just one flat color. That's going to add some layering and movement too. So now let's put a violet flower down here at the bottom. And I want this to be a real soft flower. Violet has a tendency to overpower if you overuse it. So I'm going to start with just clean water. We'll do a little wet on wet technique here. So let's see. And I hope you can see the clean water. In fact, you know what? I think I'll add just a little bit of the violet in there, just tint that water so that you can see it a little better. So I'm doing some very organic petals here. And I want this flower to look kind of down. So we have 3 flowers, 3 different size flowers, and they're all looking in a different direction. So that is a nice layering of movement when you have things going in different directions. Let's put the yellow in here for the center because I want that to bleed into the petals a little bit. And then we're going to add more violet in a moment. But because it can get so powerful, I'm going to do it a little bit at a time so that I don't go too far with it. So we'll just do some of the tips. We'll have the center of this flower mostly yellow and most of the violet color on the outside. Now the other overlapping trick here is I'm going to make this flower look like it is being pushed out from under the peony. And the way that you do that is by making some of the petals longer and some of them shorter. Like notice the petals that are closest to the peony are shorter, and then the petals furthest away are longer. This is called foreshortening. We are shortening the petals that are tucked up under the peony. So of course they will be a little shorter. We're not going to see the whole petal. In fact, especially the one in the center, we are going to only see the tip of that petal because it's pushed up under the peony. Okay, so now we're ready to add a little more intense violet to the edges of these petals. They're still glistening wet, and it's the perfect time to just drop in a little more color. And that is going to bleed and feather in very nicely. So we're just going to define the tips, and I'll come back to that in a minute. Let's do all these first, and then we are going to do that really short petal, and I'll show you the trick of how to make it look shorter. But first I need to clean this up. We want that petal to look like it is being crowded by the peony. I am going to paint it so that we are only seeing the top portion of that petal by just doing a little teardrop. Now that looks like that petal is folding back toward the peony because it's being pushed out. So that is a way of overlapping those two. Plus we have that merging of the colors from the peony and the violet together. So that is also an overlapping of color. And now I'm going to take a lighter green, this is just a little sap green, and I'm going to add some greenery up here at the top. And it's not straight. Notice I made it bend so it looks like it has a little movement in it. It's bending. And I'm doing it light because we are going to layer on top of it. And that will add depth to our bouquet. So that's enough for that one. I also want to do a little peony bloom right here just to fill up a little more space. And I'm going to light with it at first. We'll just get a little bit more color in here. And we can overlap some greenery over this, and that will help it look more layered. All right, so let's add a little more greenery out here. And again, I'm going to keep it kind of light. You know, in watercolors, we do the light colors first, and then we come back with the darker colors. And I want all my leaves to go in different directions. That adds more movement. Let's put some leaves down here. And we're just kind of filling in the bouquet now. Just looking around for where else do we need a little something. And leaves are a great way to do it. Let's see. I think I'm going to put 2 more blooms down here at the bottom. We'll do yellow ones to fill in a little more space. We want lots of flowers and blooms in our bouquet. You rarely see a bouquet with just 2 or 3 flowers, right? We want this to be big and lush, so we're going to add lots of flowers and greenery in here. And let's just put these little stems and maybe 1 more leaf under here. And we can let that go so that it touches the yellow. And notice how that yellow bloom is bleeding into that green leaf next to it. That again makes it look layered. It makes that yellow flower project forward. Let's see, let's mix up a little bit different green for our peony. It's a little more yellow green there. And I can already tell that I want my peony a little bit darker. That's receding a little too much. So let's see, let's also do some dark green leaves. So we're also going to add a lot of movement in here by having our leaves curl different ways. So this leaf is kind of drooping down at the bottom. And then I think I need another one right about here, drooping toward the bottom as well. Yep, that's going to look great. And notice how this little leaf cluster and the one I just painted below the purple one, that creates a C curve. C curves are really great in compositions for movement. If you notice, our three main flowers, the peony, the yellow flower, and then the violet flower, if you move your eye from the top yellow, it curves around through the peony and down through the purple, the violet flower. So that's our really big C curve right there. All this is just layering movement throughout our bouquet. And now I'm going to add something really interesting. I am going to play with my little brush here that if you've watched any of my recent videos, you're probably tired of hearing about this little brush. But I love this brush. And it comes in a set of multiple sizes. And you can do this with any fine liner. You don't have to have this brush. My extended point brush would do this as well, but this little brush just makes these organic patterns so effortlessly. It really does look like twigs. So I love the brush, and I'm sorry I keep talking about it. But it's really a good one. Of course, I'll put a link to it down below the video. But look at that. I mean, that looks just like a twig. And I really didn't try. So I'm layering this. This is a mixture of Van Dyke Brown and sepia, so it's a really dark color. And I'm layering it on top of everything else. So the difference in texture, as well as the difference in color, as well as just the movement of it, how I have it bending, all those things are layering movement. And I'm overlapping them. So I'm using both of these tricks here. I'm overlapping it on top of other elements, as well as, you know, making them droop and bend and using a darker color. All those things. And now we need something dark up here. We need some greenery that's dark and overlapping up here. So we'll just do another little greenery limb right there. Now see, that's why we did the first one up here in a light green, so that the darker green could overlap it. Let's see, we need more of this darker green. We can't just do it in one spot. We need to do it in 2 or 3 spots. So we'll tuck in something right here. All right. And maybe something over here. That's good. All right, let's see. As I'm looking through this, we need to darken up our centers. Actually, I'm going to darken up these little yellow buds just a little bit to give them some dimension because they're looking kind of flat to me. Now, that will make it look more dimensional. Okay, we don't have to overdo it. All right, I'll soften that up a little bit so it's not such a hard line. Some hard lines are good, some soft lines are good. It really helps if you can add a little bit of both. And let's darken up this yellow one just a little bit. Let's add a few dark petals in this yellow one. All right, that makes it more dimensional as well. And we need to finish off our centers to make them really pop. So I'm just using some sepia. Things are pretty dry. Oops. Okay. Notice how the center of the flowers are not completely covered. There's white space in the center of the flower. That was one of the mistakes that I really made a lot in my early days, is that I didn't leave enough white space in the center of my flowers, and then they looked very flat and it was just overpowering. I think I'll put just a little bit of orange in this peony center to help that with some dimension as well. Okay. All right, so now I'm just reassessing, and let's look and let's see, what else do we need here? I want to darken up this peony. It's a little too pale, so I'll just mix up. I'm just using Winsor Yellow and Permanent Rose to get a peachy color. If it's too orange, you just add a little more pink. And if you get it too pink, you just add a little more yellow. That's better. I like that better. Okay. And see, we have that leaf overlapping it. So we don't want to mess that up. And in fact, I think I'm going to redo the green on that peony too. Let's just get a few little bud details on here first. And now let's, while that's still wet, I'm going to redo those green petals on there so that it will bleed into it just a little bit. Okay, that's good. So just to add a little more interest to these leaves, I'm going to very quickly just put some center veins. I'm going to overdo it just a little bit. Just a little light detail. And now I really think we need something else here. We need another texture, and I don't know, it just seems there are a few little spots I think we could really make this better. So I love to use buff titanium to do some little things like, almost like baby's breath, you know, just that little touch of interest. So the buff titanium doesn't show up so much. In fact, I think I had a little bit of the violet left in this brush, so it's almost a violet buff color, which is just fine. It's going to dry very, very light. We're going to see mostly the texture. We're not really looking at the color as much as the texture. And that's really what I want here, is a little more texture. So see, I think that really balanced that well. Now just need to add a little Van Dyke Brown for the stem. Yeah, I think Van Dyke Brown is really the best way to go. It doesn't have to be very thick. This is just a background element. They're just peeking out from underneath everything else. Okay, now we're finished. So I hope that you can see how using different techniques to overlap our element, as well as having movement throughout the bouquet in several different layers, all those things have worked together to make us a very big, healthy, lush bouquet. Well, thank you for painting with me today. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you found some really good tips to help with your bouquets. If you would, leave me a comment and let me know which tip you think is going to be the most helpful for you. Thanks again, and I hope to see you next time.